There are two things that a leader can influence when it comes to getting results. There's the strategy or the plan, and then there's the ability to execute that strategy. And if you ask leaders which of these two things they struggle with more, the vast majority of leaders are going to tell you it's execution. Now, if you've been to business school or you have an MBA, ask yourself this question: what was it you were studying? Were you studying execution, or were you studying strategy and business planning? We find it very interesting that what leaders are struggling with is not what they were educated in. Ram Charan said that 70% of strategic failures are due to poor execution of leaders. It's rarely for lack of smarts or vision. There is one overwhelming reason why execution is as difficult as it is. Within every organization, there is a clash or a rub between two forces. The one is what we call the whirlwind or the day job. This is all the work, energy, and attention that's needed to keep the organization running today. This is what keeps the doors open. This maintains the operation. It's what people will often refer to as the real work. The other force is the goals for moving the organization forward. These two things are not the same. They're both absolutely necessary, and they do not get along. Ask yourself this question: would the people in my organization still be busy even if we didn't have any goals for moving the organization forward? Think about the strategies, the initiatives, the priorities that you've seen die. What killed them? Was it incompetence? Was it defiance? In the vast majority of the cases, what we see is that they are choked or starved by the whirlwind, by the urgency of the day-to-day. In the vast majority of the cases, people are not stupid and they're not lazy. They're busy. The primary characteristic of the whirlwind is urgency. It acts on you. The goals for moving the organization forward are important, but they will never have the same sense of immediacy or urgency as the whirlwind does. You have to act on them. When urgency and importance clash, urgency wins. Here's the bottom line. The challenge with execution is not simply executing on a goal. It's executing on a goal in the midst of the whirlwind. The four disciplines of execution exist solely for the purpose of helping an organization execute on its goals in the midst of that whirlwind. Even though these disciplines are logical and straightforward, they are not easy to implement or maintain in an organizational setting. They say easy, they do hard. And whether you're running a very simple organization or an extremely complex one, the good news is they always work. The first of these disciplines is to focus on the wildly important. If a team or an organization has 2 to 3 goals in addition to the whirlwind, they are likely to achieve 2 to 3 goals. That same team has 4 to 10 goals, they're likely to achieve only 1 or 2. This is called the law of diminishing return, and it is real. That same team has 11 to 20 goals, they're not likely to accomplish anything outside of the whirlwind. At 11 to 20 goals, they can't even hear you, let alone execute. While this is a simple enough idea, it's very difficult for most organizations to adhere to. Leaders are typically the ambitious and the creative type. And the problem with that type is they always want to do more and not less. And there will always be more good ideas than there is capacity to execute. Because of that, organizations have to say no to good ideas. And that's very counterintuitive. We like to say no to the bad ideas, not the good ideas. Said differently, in the words of Jim Collins, the enemy of the great is the good. These critical few goals that are in addition to the whirlwind are called wildly important goals, or WIGs. These are the goals that make all the difference. Failure to achieve these goals renders any other achievement inconsequential. Here are a few of the critical rules that apply to Discipline 1. First, there should be no more than 1 to 3 WIGs at the same time for the same team. Secondly, sub-WIGs can be different from their parent WIGs, but must ensure the success of the parent. It's not enough for the sub-WIG to just support or align to the parent WIGs. The sum total of the sub-WIGs or battles must ensure the success of the parent WIG or the war. And third, a WIG must have a clear finish line, a single measure of success in the form of from X to Y by when. Too often, goals are defined in general terms with a variety of measures that merely dilute accountability and clarity. In the 1950s, our struggling space program had the goal of leading the world in space exploration. And that was a fine goal, and there were lots of measures associated with it, but there was very little focus, clarity, or accountability. In '61, Kennedy said something a little different. He said, "We'll put a man on the moon by the end of the decade and return him safely home." When he stated that from X to Y by when, he created a line in the sand. Accountability went up, and interestingly enough, so did morale. With every organization that we work with, when they move from a half a dozen or a dozen of these "we kinda ought to's" to one or two no matter what's, there is a tangible change in morale. The second discipline is to act on the lead measure. Once a clear finish line is established in Discipline 1, the team knows how it wins or loses. It has its lag measure. But the key to execution is to act on the lead measure. While lag measures measure the goal, lead measures measure something that leads to the goal and something the team can influence. A lead measure is predictive of goal success, but it is also influenceable by the team. This is the golden rule of execution, focusing on a predictive and influenceable measure. In a word, it is leverage. For instance, if you want to lose weight, the lag measure is weight loss. The lead measure, there's two of them, you got them, right? Diet, calories taken in, and exercise, calories burned. They're predictive of weight loss, and they're also more directly influenceable. Here's the problem. Human beings focus on lag measures rather than lead measures, even though the lag measure is not directly influenceable. And they do this for two reasons. First, because the lag measure matters. That's the thing that you want, or that's the thing that you're accountable for. The second reason people focus on lag measures, because the data is always easier to get. All right? Go back to the weight loss thing. If I've got scales in my bathroom, I can step on those scales, and in 2 seconds, I know what the data is telling me. I got no idea how many calories I've eaten today, and I certainly don't know how many I've burned. Not only are lag measures easier to measure, half the time they'll chase you down. One of our clients affectionately refers to lag measures as "oh crap" measures, because when you pull them, you're either saying "oh crap" or "oh cool," but it doesn't feel like you have a lot of influence over them. As a matter of fact, if you feel like luck is playing a role in your career, it's because you're looking at lag measures. Lead measures are different for every team and every WIG. Examples might include out of stocks in a grocery store driving store sales, compliance to safety standards, driving a reduction in accidents, qualified proposals, driving a monthly sales number, improved preventative maintenance and full crews, driving improved plant production, number of one-on-one coaching sessions with call center reps to drive a customer satisfaction number. Your lead measures aren't always that easy to identify, and they're not always that easy to track once you have identified them. This is the main reason why narrowing the number of goals that you're focusing on in Discipline 1 is so critical. If a given team is trying to impact half a dozen goals simultaneously, it becomes almost impossible to identify and track that many lead measures, particularly in the face of the whirlwind. The third discipline is to create a compelling scoreboard. The purpose of that scoreboard is to hold the lead and the lag measures from Discipline 1 and Discipline 2. And without a scoreboard, it won't take people very long to forget what they actually agreed the lead and the lag measures actually were. Now, creating a scoreboard isn't very tricky. Creating a compelling scoreboard, That's the difficult part. It needs to feel at least a little like a game. Now, to do that well, there are 4 rules for creating a compelling scoreboard. First, simple. Think about how many football statistics there are and how many are actually on the scoreboard itself. This is about creating a player's scoreboard, not a coach's scoreboard. Second, it has to be visible to the players. Third, it has to show both the lead and the lag measures. I have to see that I can affect the score, that's the lead part, and that it's making a real difference, that's the lag part. And finally, and most importantly, you can tell immediately if you are winning or losing. One of our clients, a manufacturing company operating in North Carolina, in a town where the average educational level is only 7th grade, it's very interesting to us because every employee in that plant can tell you every single day whether they are winning or losing on their top priorities. This is fascinating to us because most executives can't provide you with that information. By the way, that same plant is also producing twice the profits with less people than all of its other sister plants. We also believe that the single biggest contributor to employee morale is whether or not a person feels that they are winning at work. Just go back in your own life and think about the time when you were most engaged and most excited about what you were doing, and see if at that time you didn't feel like you were winning. Disciplines 1, 2, and 3 creates a winnable game for a person. Not just a game, but a winnable game. But we haven't executed anything at this point. Discipline 4, create a cadence of accountability, is where the real execution takes place. This discipline revolves around a 20-minute meeting that happens every week for every team that owns a wildly important goal and happens at the same time each week. In this meeting, you do not discuss the whirlwind, even if the building is on fire, and every person on the team shows up thinking about the very same critical question. What are the 1 to 3 things that I can do this week in order to impact the scoreboard? In this 15 to 20-minute WIG session, each person takes just about a minute to review 3 things. First, I report on last week's commitments. Did I do what I said I was going to do? Second, I review the scoreboard. Is the lead measure moving? And if so, is the lag measure responding? And finally, third, based on what that scoreboard is telling me, what am I going to do in this next upcoming week to impact those lead measures? As you look at this week of time, you can see the yellow blocks are those objectives where we're trying to have an impact on the lead measure. And the blue, as you can guess, that's the whirlwind. Now, if you were to remove those yellow blocks, you can see, and you know from experience, it will not stay white. It'll turn blue, and it'll turn blue fast. The 4 disciplines is literally a process for driving the yellow into the blue. Folks, this is what execution looks like. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. One of our clients from a Fortune 50 company put it in a real interesting way. She said, we don't have dragons swooping down, knocking us off our priorities. What we have are gnats, right? Every day with the gnats in our eyes, and we look back over 6 months and we haven't done any of the things we said we were going to do. The 4th discipline is gnat repellent. Let's take an example and walk it all the way through. Let's say that Bob is the manager over a number of crews in a construction company where the wildly important goal is safety. And in his slice of this meeting, he's going to do those 3 things. First, he's going to report on the commitments he made last week, that he made. He either did them or he didn't do them. Second, he's going to look at the scoreboard. Now, this is the critical piece. On the scoreboard are both the lag measure, the wildly important goal, which in this case is the incident report, and it's not moving at all. It's being stubborn, let's say, and the lead measure, which the organization has said is compliance to 8 safety standards. Now, he looks at the lead measure, and what it tells him is that crews 9, 11, and 13 are not wearing their protective eyewear when they use the saws. Number 3, He makes the commitments for this week, and of course, based on the scoreboard, he commits to talk to the foreman of crews 9, 11, and 13. Make sure they've got the eyewear and let them know it's not optional to use them. Now, here's what Bob is betting. Bob is betting that those activities will have an impact on the lead measure. It's a pretty good bet. The company as a whole is betting that the lead measure of compliance to the 8 safety standards will drive the lag measure of incident rate. And that turned out to be a very good bet. From this example, you can see how critical it is that the lead measure be both influenceable and predictive. A lot of organizations use the 4 disciplines of execution as a sort of sane alternative to their annual strategic planning processes, or as a way to just simply implement their existing strategic plans. And you can see from this example that no matter how detailed a strategic plan might be, and we've seen some very detailed ones, that no strategic plan is going to tell Bob that on week 27 he needs to talk to crews 9, 11, and 13. The adage with the strategic plan is similar to that of the general's adage that you throw out the war plan after the first shot's been fired. The planning that happens with the 4 disciplines happens every week. It's just-in-time planning. And it's planning that's responsive to what the lead measure is telling you. The 4 disciplines of execution, in short, does 3 things for every team. First, it provides simple, direct clarity around the strategic priority. It separates the wildly important goal from the whirlwind and creates very clear line of sight around how we're going to influence the wildly important goal. The second thing that it does is it engages every member of the team in a winnable game. And the final thing, and most importantly, it allows an organization to achieve its wildly important goals in the midst of a whirlwind.